Most men seek wealth as a comfort, the wise seek it as a weapon. In this world, money is not merely currency. It is obedience, influence, and control wrapped in numbers. Today, we dissect how to turn your fortune into a fortress and your resources into levers that bend others to your will. In every court, every marketplace, every boardroom, the richest man is not the one with the heaviest purse, but the one who knows how to make it by silence, loyalty, and submission. Wealth in the hands of a fool is a feast for his enemies. In the hands of the cunning, it is an empire carved without a blade. This is not a sermon on morality. This is a dissection of the quiet tyranny that money allows. A study of how gold becomes power, and power becomes permanence. Men will tell you they want money for freedom, for pleasure, for safety. Yet these same men spend it as if the purse is bottomless, as if their gold were a loyal dog that will never turn on them. They forget a truth as old as kingdoms. Wealth is loyal to no man unless you make it serve your ambition. You see, coin in the hands of the ordinary becomes decoration, trinkets, comforts that soothe the ego but starve the will to power. A rich fool is still a fool. He simply wears silk as he is led to ruin. The wise understand money is not for indulgence, it is for influence. Consider the merchant princes of Venice. They dined well, yes, but more importantly, they lent their ducats to kings at war, not out of kindness, but because a king in debt becomes a king on a leash. They could summon armies without raising a sword, command fleets without leaving their palaces. That is wealth as a weapon. Ask yourself, do you own your money, or does it own you? The masses trade their gold for fleeting sensations, a faster carriage, a brighter cloak, a feast they cannot remember a week later. They convert power into dust. The cunning do the opposite. They take dust and turn it into power. Every coin they spend is a blade thrown, a seed planted, or a chain fastened around someone else's ankle. Psychology offers a simple truth: the one who controls resources controls decisions. People imagine their choices are free, yet most are bounded by the invisible perimeter of what they can afford. Reduce that perimeter, and you reduce their autonomy. Expand yours, and you expand your ability to act while others hesitate. Do you see now why comfort is dangerous? Comfort dulls the instincts. The wolf that is always fed grows fat, slow and certain, until the day the food stops. Then it starves. But the wolf that knows hunger sharpens its teeth on the bones of opportunity. There is a reason the most dangerous rulers were often those who began with little and built much. They learned early that money was not for ornament, but for the bending of wills. When Caesar borrowed heavily to climb the political ladder in Rome, it was not because he loved debt. It was because he understood that strategic spending on alliances and public favor could buy him power greater than any creditor could threaten to take away. The modern man, however, has been trained to see wealth as personal comfort. He is told, spend on yourself. You've earned it. It is a clever lie, because while he is distracted with consumption, those who lend him the means to consume are quietly buying his obedience. If you wish to wield wealth as a weapon, you must reverse this conditioning. Every coin you touch should be assessed for its potential to command, to bind, to extend your reach. Ask, if I spend this, will it return to me multiplied in power, or will it vanish like smoke? Think of your money as soldiers. Would you send them to die for a fleeting thrill, or would you station them in positions that expand your territory, cut off your rivals, and guard your future? There is also a subtler form of weaponized wealth, the wealth you refuse to spend. The hoarded reserve, the siege treasury. When others believe you have infinite means, they bend their terms to you, lower their demands, soften their threats. The appearance of abundance can be as commanding as abundance itself. And here lies another trap for the sentimental generosity without calculation. To give is not inherently weak, but to give without the expectation of return is an abdication of power. True generosity in the Machiavellian sense is strategic. Each gift is a hook, each favor a silent bond. History remembers those who understood this. The Medici funded art not from pure love of beauty, but because every masterpiece bore their name into the minds of generations, binding Florence to their legacy. It was gold transmuted into influence, so lasting it survives centuries after the coins themselves have vanished. So, I ask again, when you touch money, do you touch silk or steel? Do you warm yourself by burning your resources, or do you forge them into weapons? Remember, comfort is the luxury of those already beyond the reach of rivals. For the rest, wealth must be sharpened, aimed, and released with precision. Because in the game of power, the one who sees money as a mere pleasure will always bow to the one who wields it as a weapon. And yet, knowing how to sharpen your gold is only half the art. The next question, and the more dangerous one, is how to aim it so that those you target never see the attack coming. That is where our next lesson begins. You have amassed your resources. You have turned your wealth into a weapon. But what is a weapon if you do not know how to aim it? Power, like iron, is most effective when it is leveraged, when a small force bends the course of a much larger one. This is the art of financial leverage. Ask yourself, have you ever seen a man of modest means move empires? Not by brute strength, but by cunning deployment of what he controlled. The bankers of Renaissance Florence did not own armies, yet their influence determined which condottieri marched and which princes fell. Every loan, every investment, every debt written into a ledger was a silent command over flesh, loyalty, and fate itself. Do you see? Leverage is not about having everything. It is about making the little you have bend the wills of those who have more. A coin placed here, a promise extended there, a favor granted at just the right moment. Suddenly, the landscape shifts in your favor, and the mighty do your bidding without ever realizing they serve you. Consider the great manipulators of history. John Law, in France, controlled the Mississippi Company and reshaped the wealth of an entire nation with nothing more than paper promises. The instrument was intangible, but the consequences were tangible. Fortunes rising and falling at his design. The lesson, the true power of money, lies not in its possession, but in its deployment. Do you control your money, or does your money control the world in ways you cannot see? You must understand the psychology of leverage. People respond to scarcity, to opportunity, to the illusion of influence. If you offer them a foothold, a chance, a token that implies reward, they will bend, negotiate, even betray for it. You do not coerce, you direct. You do not push, you pivot. The smallest investment in the right place can yield influence exponentially greater than any brute expenditure. Have you ever noticed how creditors dictate terms to kings? How financiers silently decide wars without drawing a sword? Why is it that a wealthy merchant, seated in his darkened office, can determine the fate of armies, alliances, even entire cities? Because he understands leverage. Each gold coin lent is not a gift, it is a fulcrum. Each contract signed is not paperwork, it is a hinge upon which power swings. Now, consider your own resources. Are they scattered like loose sand across your life, or are they collected, concentrated, and placed in positions to create movement far beyond their size? Leverage demands discipline. It demands patience. It demands the cold recognition that you will act for advantage, not for applause. Even simple debts can be tools of domination. When someone owes you, you hold more than money, you hold options, you hold influence. You hold a quiet, invisible sway that shapes decisions long before any words are spoken. History is littered with men who underestimated the leverage of small, seemingly inconsequential loans. Men who were later forced to surrender castles, titles, and dignity without ever drawing a blade. And yet, leverage is also a mirror. Use it wisely, and you bend the world to your will. Abuse it, or misplace it, and it bends back, crushing those who thought themselves clever. Remember the Medici. Their fortune was immense, their reach pervasive. Yet every leap of leverage carried risk. A misjudged alliance, a poorly timed loan, and they would have fallen. Only those who understand the delicate balance between risk and control survive this game. Ask yourself again, when you offer your resources, do you give freely, or do you place a hook, a pivot, a hinge that swings destiny to your favor? Every action, every investment, Every calculated favor must be executed with intent, with foresight, with the understanding that leverage is invisible until it snaps into effect. The question is not whether you have wealth. The question is whether you can make your wealth work for you far beyond its apparent value. Can a single coin alter the outcome of a negotiation? Can a promise made at the right moment turn a rival into a pawn? Can you, with little apparent effort, move forces far larger than yourself? If not, then your gold is comfort. If so, it is power incarnate. And here lies the ultimate truth. Leverage is not merely about numbers. It is about foresight, patience, and subtlety. It is the quiet hand that bends the strong without a fight. It is the invisible blade that shifts destinies while the world applauds the spectacle of those who think they are free. So I leave you with this. Your wealth is not yet a weapon unless it commands more than it contains, unless it bends others to your will with invisible strings, unless it moves the world in ways that go unnoticed until the shift is complete. And what of those invisible strings, those quiet levers of power? That is the territory of our next lesson, where control becomes not just possible, but inevitable. Power is rarely seized in a vacuum. It is not the loudest voice, the largest army, or the heaviest purse alone that commands. True dominance lies in the quiet orchestration of dependence, in making others need you more than they dare to admit. Ask yourself, who in your life owes you nothing, yet relies on your existence, your favor, your resources to survive? The history of states, families, and fortunes teaches this lesson clearly. Look to the Italian city-states, where rulers and merchants understood that control is not maintained by fear alone, nor by love, but by necessity. Florence flourished not because the Medici were loved by all, but because those who opposed them depended on their patronage to pay artisans, fund armies, and sustain commerce. Remove the Medici, and the machinery of the city would grind to a halt. Do you see the elegance? Dependency is invisible yet inescapable. It binds the ambitious, the desperate, and the complacent alike. It creates a web in which you are the hub, and all movement flows through you. Once such a network exists, obedience becomes automatic, loyalty becomes habitual, and rivals are paralyzed by the knowledge that to oppose you is to starve themselves of opportunity. Even in modern times, this principle endures. Consider the financiers behind empires. A CEO may command a company, but the investor who controls the capital controls the decision. The entrepreneur may believe themselves sovereign, but without funding, partnerships, and credit, their kingdom is nothing but a castle of sand. Dependency is not coercion, it is subtlety made manifest. It is the quiet voice in the mind that whispers, "I cannot succeed without them." And here is the first psychological insight humans abhor: vulnerability. We mask our need, pretend we are independent, yet we constantly seek resources, validation, and alliances that sustain us. To position yourself as indispensable is to exploit the very survival instinct that governs behavior. You do not fight them, you enfold them in necessity. Every favor granted, every opportunity provided, every resource extended is a thread in a web that tightens with each act. History provides stark examples. The Ottoman sultans maintained their empire not merely through conquest, but by carefully constructing dependency among the provincial governors. Each bey owed tribute, each janissary relied on the state for survival, each merchant depended on imperial favor for trade. Disobedience meant isolation, and isolation meant irrelevance. None could oppose the center without destroying themselves first. Notice the subtlety. It is not fear that dominates here. It is need. Fear can be resisted, need cannot. People will bend, manipulate, and negotiate endlessly to preserve what sustains them. You must recognize that to create dependence is to create silent, obedient allies whose actions are shaped more by necessity than by morality. Ask yourself, where in your life, in your network, in your resources, could dependency be cultivated? Who benefits from your presence, your decisions, your wealth, and would falter in your absence? This is where strategy becomes surgical. You do not seek to dominate all at once. You seek to ensure that the crucial few cannot move without you. Influence flows where dependence runs deepest. Even seemingly small dependencies carry outsized power. A mentor who opens doors, a creditor who provides capital, a partner who manages operations. Each is a lever. The wise do not merely hold the lever, they construct the necessity for it. Remove your support, and the world rearranges itself to your advantage. The unsuspecting do not see the trap, only the absence of the thread they took for granted. Yet here is the peril. Dependency, like any power, is delicate. Overreach and you provoke desperation and rebellion. Neglect it, and it withers. Timing, subtlety, and perception must guide you. Those who rely on you must always believe they act freely, even as their choices have been circumscribed. Control is invisible, and therein lies its beauty. So consider this: if your influence is measured by the needs of others, how can you increase it without inciting rebellion? How do you ensure loyalty when it is born of necessity rather than admiration? And most importantly, once dependency is secured, how do you transform it into leverage that shapes not just decisions, but destinies? Because dependency is not the end of power, it is the foundation. And on this foundation, the next layer of domination is built: the subtle manipulation of perception, desire, and ambition itself. Generosity is celebrated. It is praised, admired, and rewarded with applause. But ask yourself, does giving freely make one powerful or powerless? The wise understand that generosity is never an act of the heart alone. It is a tool, a weapon, a mirror that reflects influence back to the giver. Misused, it enslaves; wielded with precision, it binds the world to your will. Look to the Medici, who poured gold into Florence not to satisfy whim, but to craft loyalty, shape culture, and secure dominion over both markets and minds. Every commissioned painting, every funded library, every patronage extended was a subtle chain. Citizens admired the beauty, but their admiration concealed dependency. They relied on the Medici for prestige, opportunity, and in that reliance, obedience was born. Do you see the principle? True generosity is never blind. It is strategic. Every favor, every gift, every concession should be placed with intent. When you give without calculation, you are not generous. You are naive. You release power into the world, blind to the ways it might return to weaken you. And humans are quick to exploit such blindness. Consider the psychology behind this. Humans are compelled to reciprocate. They feel obligation, guilt, or admiration in response to gifts. These are not moral laws, they are levers of influence. When you understand the mechanisms, generosity becomes a silent architect of control. One well-timed gift, one carefully crafted favor, can shift allegiance, loyalty, and even thought itself. History provides stark examples. Take the great financiers of Renaissance Europe, who lent not only money but opportunity. The recipient believed themselves free, yet every act of dependency bound them tighter. When the patron withdrew, or when the favor came with expectation, the seemingly autonomous became predictable, malleable, obedient. Generosity in this form was not surrender, it was power disguised as kindness. Ask yourself, when you give, do you give to gain influence or to assuage conscience? To whom do you extend your hand? And what strings do you attach? There is a subtle artistry in letting your generosity appear uncalculated, accidental, even noble, while each act is a precise maneuver in a larger game. Those who fail to master this are often the ones most exploited, most manipulated, most used by the very people they sought to charm. Even in business today, the same rules apply. A small loan, an opportunity offered, a concession in negotiation. If wielded strategically, it binds the other party to you. They act in your interest, often without recognizing it. If offered recklessly, generosity becomes leverage for them, draining your resources while strengthening their independence. And yet, the most insidious form of generosity is the one that appears effortless. The Medici did not parade their wealth to intimidate, they displayed it to enchant. They did not demand loyalty in words, they cultivated it in expectation. Those who received their gifts felt gratitude, or even love, but beneath it flowed the quiet current of dependence. And dependence is obedience in disguise. Do you see how subtle this must be? To wield generosity as power, you must suppress your desire for recognition. You must ensure that each act benefits you in influence more than it costs in gold. You must calculate not only the immediate effect but the cascading consequences, the unseen obligations, the unseen loyalties forged in silence. Generosity is therefore never indulgence, it is architecture. It is the laying of foundations upon which influence, control, and compliance rise. Each act of giving is a brick in a fortress whose walls others cannot see, yet within which they are trapped. They believe themselves free, but in truth, their freedom is an illusion you constructed with your strategic hand. So, ask yourself, are you giving to be admired or to be obeyed? Are you offering resources to satisfy conscience or to shape destiny? Because those who fail to see the difference are enslaved by their own intentions. Those who master it command the world without striking a blow. And now, having woven influence through dependency and disguised power within generosity, we arrive at a more dangerous domain, the allocation of resources themselves. The ruthless, cold calculus of spending that ensures lasting dominance. Power is not merely possessed. Power is directed. Wealth, influence, and opportunity mean nothing if scattered like ashes in the wind. True dominion demands the ruthless allocation of resources. A precision that spares nothing, pities no one, and invests only where return is absolute. Ask yourself, are your assets tools or distractions? Consider the great rulers of old. Augustus did not squander Rome's treasury on fleeting luxuries. He allocated it like a general marshal's legions, sending each coin to secure loyalty, fund conquest, or build infrastructure that would endure centuries. Every sestertius had purpose. Every grain of gold was positioned to shape the empire, not simply to satisfy transient desire. Do you see the distinction? Most men spend emotionally, indulgently, with sentiment or habit guiding their hand. The powerful spend strategically, unemotionally, like a surgeon selecting which artery to sever and which to preserve. Resources are not to comfort the self, they are to command the world. Psychology tells us why this is so critical. Humans are drawn to immediate gratification. Pleasure obscures judgment. Empathy clouds strategy. Those who allocate resources with warmth, mercy, or favoritism often weaken themselves before they realize it. Cold-blooded calculation ensures that every act, every investment, every expenditure either fortifies your position or binds others to it. Look to the financiers of the Dutch East India Company. Their capital was not diffused in charity or indiscriminate trade. It was concentrated on routes, on fleets, on ventures that maximized control and minimized risk. When the winds shifted, those who misallocated suffered ruin. The company that moved with precision dominated oceans and markets alike. The lesson: allocation is control. Misallocation is surrender. Ask yourself, when you release your resources, are they shaping the world in your favor or merely dissipating into noise? Every coin, every asset, every favor must be assigned like a soldier to the critical battlefield. Misplaced generosity, misjudged loans, or poorly timed investments are like troops lost in the fog of war. They may fight, yes, but for whom? Certainly not for you. Even rulers understood subtlety in allocation. Catherine de' Medici in France did not merely grant favor to courtiers, she deployed it to manipulate factions, create dependency, and maintain balance among rivals. Her resources were not rewards, they were instruments of calculation. Each pension, each gift, each office assigned was a lever. The wise know allocation is influence in disguise. And here is the psychological nuance: humans rarely notice precision, but they feel its absence. Those you favor without reason grow complacent. Those neglected without notice are emboldened. By distributing your resources with strategic care, you dictate perception, shape behavior, and manipulate ambition without revealing your hand. Power lies not in abundance, but in the thoughtful placement of what you command. Do you see now why sentiment must never guide allocation? Emotion clouds foresight. Mercy introduces weakness. Every resource that leaves your control without producing leverage is a seed of future vulnerability. The brilliant strategist understands that wealth is not wealth until it works, influence is not influence until it bends outcomes, And opportunity is not opportunity until it positions you above rivals. Consider the lessons of modern financiers and industrialists. Warren Buffett does not scatter his investments indiscriminately. He calculates, he concentrates, he positions. Every dollar has a target, every commitment has expectation. He understands the principle as clearly as any Renaissance prince. Resources mismanaged invite collapse. Resources deployed strategically create empires. So ask yourself, when you spend, invest, or extend, do you act with surgical precision or with casual sentiment? Are your assets, like soldiers, disciplined and positioned, or scattered, vulnerable, and ineffective? Because the world does not reward kindness. It rewards control. It rewards foresight. It rewards those who allocate with unflinching clarity. And here is the final reflection: those who master the cold calculus of resource allocation move unseen, yet unstoppable. They bend rivals, shape markets, and dictate outcomes without raising a hand. They command not because they are loved, but because they are indispensable, precise, and inevitable. But mastery does not end here. Precision in allocation builds the stage for the ultimate exercise of influence, the manipulation of perception itself, the shaping of reality, so that others act exactly as you desire without ever realizing they are controlled. That is where our true lesson of financial dominance begins. Power is seldom seized by force. True dominion is subtle. It lies not in the blade, but in the mind of others. Control them without their knowledge. Bind them with need, influence, and carefully placed favor. Make them act as you desire while believing they choose freely. This is the quiet tyranny of wealth and strategy. Every coin you spend, every opportunity you grant, every favor extended, it is a lever. Every dependency you create, every illusion of generosity, every calculated allocation, it is a thread in the web. Can you see it? The world moves according to the invisible lines you draw, while those who follow believe themselves unbound. That is mastery. Ask yourself, do you act as a player or as a pawn? Do you bend circumstance to your will or bend yourself to theirs? If you have understood even a fraction of this lesson, you have glimpsed the true psychology of dominance. Know, take action. Comment below your thoughts. Subscribe to uncover more strategies of influence. Share this video, for knowledge that is not wielded is power wasted. The world will not wait, neither should you.